Guys, welcome back to the podcast. This is the coaching corner, part of the podcast. It's been a long time. I actually have no idea how long it's been since we've done one of these. We had a really good streak of doing them every month, and then maybe they went every 6 weeks, and then maybe it moved to every 8 weeks, and then I don't know what happened. We just found our groove with the improvement season, and then we're
to be fair, Steve, it is first and foremost us, and then it's Harry and Ryan, who are just like kind of very similar to us as well. And then it's like I would say men are typically more like this, of like not being so social when it comes to that. I know myself, at least. I never really call up kind of friends and just like want to hear how they are doing, right? And I have one friend, one male friend who's like that. But it's just like, if you're not reaching out, then you don't really hear from them anyway, right? And at some point you get together and you just have a great time. That's basically us.
Yeah. Well, we haven't seen each other in person since like 2019, and it did not feel that way at all.
Was that the first time since 2019?
I think so, that we were all together.
Holy shit. That honestly didn't really feel
the last one
like
was
it
Cliff
at
Wilson
all.
Seminar, I think.
And see, it didn't really cross my mind that it was that long time ago. It's crazy.
Pre-COVID, we survived. And actually, it's funny because, Harry, you did come up on the last podcast, the last improvement season, because I was talking about how I felt inadequate to your social skills. Because and so people are going to be waiting for you to be speaking the whole podcast, because I was like, Harry he just has more and more to say. It was at the dinner, and this is I think you could take it as like a, what's it called? Like a diss or whatever. It's a compliment, because sometimes I feel like my brain's just empty. I'm like, I have nothing to say. And then someone like Harry's in the corner, he's just got like something new. And I know you were tired as well. And I was like, man, this guy's tired and he's still got more content to talk about. So
if you want to avoid any kind of those awkward moments of silence, just call up Harry, take him with you.
I think
there's always something to talk about then.
The fact that I've kept in-person coaching part of my life for like the last 10 years.
So it's like a skill you have developed.
Yeah, because they're like often, at least for people's first sessions, they're quite nervous. So you have to be the conversation driver constantly. But then you also can't just talk about yourself. So it's constantly like, basically whatever someone has mentioned, I'll try and remember it. And then like the way I visualize it is like I've got like a little pickaxe, and I'll just keep hitting at the thing that they mentioned and try and break into like something deeper, and then get them to open up more and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's a good, like, even for online coaches, like I'm sure you do it as well, Pascal, where a client will mention something that for the purpose of physique development, you could argue is completely irrelevant, but they say something about, I don't know, whatever it could be in their life, like they went out and ate a donut, or, oh, that's actually maybe relevant. I don't know what it could be. I'm trying to think of an example, but it happens with clients. Yeah, something like that. And again, that could be completely irrelevant, but I always try and note it down just to make them feel like heard and I relate to them in some sort of way. I guess that's similar to what you're talking about there, Harry, where you're just like, I don't know, you try and make them feel comfortable. So you kind of introduce these other things. I think you can take it too far as well. And then it just becomes like a social get together. But I think one-on-one PT can often be more like that.
Do you have any kind of starting point that you always kind of, or where's kind of a typical starting point for you to just like break the ice, and then from there on, it's like you said with the analogy of like breaking it into smaller pieces and just then pick up the things and go from there?
I like to ask unconventional questions, but
what are those like?
Like
how big's your
my colleagues? I have a reputation.
When did you ever last shit?
I have a reputation at my gym with my colleagues for being very direct, and people said to the point that it makes them uncomfortable. But I either miss the social cue or I don't care. So that's what I've said to them before, and then they thought that was the perfect example of how direct I am, the way I responded to the observation that I'm direct. But no, it's just like say to someone like, I don't know, how are you feeling today out of 10, and they might say 7, and then instead of me saying, oh, why aren't you 10, I'll be like, why aren't you 1? Like, why aren't you 1 out of 10? So then they have to think about, why am I good, as opposed to why am I not great? Does that make sense? Like that kind of thing. Just making them, instead, I try and avoid the standard questions of like, hey, how are you doing? Because then people just go, good, thanks.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, are you having a bad day? Sometimes, even if they're not. And they're like, why? What do you mean? And then it immediately gets a conversation going. And I'll be like, no reason. I just wondered if you're having a bad day. So that kind of stuff. And then also when you can tell when people are talking about their hobbies, because they will become much more animated. And then when I get that in my mind, I'm like, and then I'll keep talking about that and keep poking it, if that makes sense. But it nearly always ends up being like Marvel or Star Wars for most people as well. So.
Easy.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like Marvel and Star Wars?
Religion is an interesting one to bring up as well, because a lot of the people in our social circle are pretty like, not just don't believe in gods and stuff like that, and that's always an interesting debate. So,
but you have to be careful then, don't you?
Yeah.
I'm not careful about it, so
that
creates.
So what I've noticed though, whenever you then start to talk about politics or anything religious or so, that people, especially when passion is involved there as well, that it can become a little bit of a uncomfortable topic for you if you have like strong opposite views. For example, I think
religion is safer than politics normally.
Yeah, so I have a shout out to a long-term client of mine, Biz. He is a religious person as well. And at some point I was just like asking him out of curiosity about his views and beliefs, right? And it was very, very interesting, but also he is very open-minded about it and also happy to share it. It's kind of, I don't know, I have a pre-bias when it comes to religion because you nearly always just hear the negative things that are then related to religion, right? Picking it up on the news because someone blew himself up or so, you know? Well, like we've even joked about it right before the podcast about priests, and I don't want to go there. Everyone can now think their own thing to it.
I'll tell people.
Yeah.
And, Pascal said I would make a good priest, and I said, "What do you mean? Is in like a Catholic priest? Because I don't want to be associated with that." Like,
and I mean, you always have those pre-biases, or often have those pre-biases due to the things that you pick up. But I think it's very, very interesting to listen then to what people have to say, where they are coming from, when they are very positive about it, instead of kind of, I don't know, very strong viewpoints, such as I can only bring up like those extreme vegans, for example, you know, who are very vocal about it and try to convince other people that their way of living is the wrong way, you know?
I think it's even, I was just going to say, it's like bodybuilding. Like if you tell a Gen Pop person you're a bodybuilder, they automatically think you're an idiot, meathead, self-obsessed.
Taking steroids,
taking steroids. Some of these things might be true, you know, but there's very positive aspects of this bodybuilding community. Same with vegans. Like there are
the steroids.
Like the stereotypical vegans are like out there, but Charlotte is
what's
obviously vegan. She's not.
How do you know if someone's vegan or not? Don't worry, they'll tell you. Yeah.
But she's like, she follows groups that are more like, I don't know, you wouldn't associate them with the extreme version of that. The same with like religious. I imagine when I think about it and I think about some of the positives, I'm like, oh, it's like a social network that you're automatically like part of the family and you get together and you interact, and a lot of the fundamental principles, I guess, are very positive in terms of, respect and love and caring for others and these sort of things. Yeah. There's good parts to like a lot of these.
Harry, what I would like to know, because it has been such a long time since I was doing something like offline PTing, and I wasn't that often in a position where I was uncomfortable with a situation. But how do you deal with uncomfortable situation, such as, I don't know, maybe a topic, or maybe, I don't know, the person is acting or behaving in a specific way that makes you uncomfortable?
I'm much better at handling it now than I used to be, because now I make it very clear from the second someone meets me that I will be really direct from the get-go, even if we haven't got any rapport yet. And that I found puts people at ease. It shocks people initially, but then it puts people at ease almost immediately, because I have all different types of clients. Like some people they spend most of their life like in a professional environment, like a corporate environment, when that is almost liberating for them. And I find they might be very cold and professional for like the first, not to say I'm not professional, but maybe for like the first 20 minutes or so. And then when they realize that I'm just going to ask them shit that other people would never dream of asking them. So even, knowing what someone's shit like is relevant to an extent. Like if they haven't lost weight for like 5 days or something like that, you just say like, you're constipated, and they're like, ugh! And then, and stuff like that. But then what I find is, people generally find that quite liberating. But I haven't had a great deal of uncomfortable conversations, I think, because I make it really clear that we're really open and that there's nothing that they can't talk about. Every now and then, like I had a client the other day where they were talking about their sexuality, and that's something that we might talk about in passing. Like someone might mention that they're gay or that they're straight or something like that. But
you're
then
just
this person,
okay, this coaching relationship stops now.
It's not so much that. It was more a case of like the person was venting at some of the issues they were having because they'd only recently come out.
I was just joking, by the way.
Yeah.
I was making kind of inappropriate gay jokes of like being homophobic.
They went completely over my head anyway. And so this particular person, it was interesting because I feel like they were younger than me as well. And there's always I feel like there's a little bit of an authority dynamic, especially when there's an age difference. So I felt like I had the responsibility to keep steering the conversation to an appropriate place, even with, obviously that person, that was their biggest stressor at that moment, was the fact that they wanted to talk about this thing. So it's always like, it's almost like being on a tightrope and you're having to like lean far enough towards that stuff that they feel like they're being heard, but then also keeping on the right side of it, because it's not my position to ever give anyone advice in that context, like training, nutrition, lifestyle. That's as far as my advice can go. And then what I do is I kind of turn it into like and is that causing you stress? Do you think that's the most significant stressor in your life right now? And constantly trying to steer it back to metrics that are important for coaching. Yeah. Without being without being dismissive of it though. Like if someone's like, because this person, like, and often you find that where people see you as an impartial person in their life, where they feel like they won't be judged by what they say. So they end up telling you stuff that, but you know that people, they're not seeking for advice. It's just venting. Yeah. They know they can say stuff without judgment and stuff like that.
That's the thing, right? People tend to be way more honest with people that they don't know, because they don't fear any kind of judgment and also consequences later down the line. Because often it's just like with strangers, you may not ever see them again, and just opening up to them is way easier than opening up actually to the people that you love and are around you. It's quite funny if you think about it, right? It's quite ironic.
I've never had anything crazy though. Like I've had some colleagues who've said like clients have told them about like affairs and things they're having. Like I've never had anything like that. Maybe I just attract the people that are more like me, who are to feel like I've got enough variables to manage without having to add a significant stressor like that.
That's also something that Steve brought up with the audience that were at the London seminar, for example, because I said, like, I so much appreciate Mike and his entourage, the people that he surrounds himself with, because I have the feeling that they are just authentic and they don't really change. They are not just like yes man and try to please you and take advantage of you in any kind of situation. They have nothing to gain really, right? And hence they are just like authentic people and haven't really changed significantly, at least not from the character traits over the past years. Steve then mentioned that it's probably also the type of person that we are then attracting as well with those seminars, because I have the feeling that everyone who I've met over the past years was mostly like that. Mostly.
I definitely wouldn't consider myself a yes man in any instance.
No.
That's why I never got on when I did have a real job. I jokingly call it a real job when I was an engineer, because I just felt like I disliked more about that job than I liked. And I found I couldn't keep it to myself either. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Got to the point where someone asked me to do something, I just be like, no. And then that obviously doesn't go down well in an employed environment with a strict hierarchy. But yeah.
I really appreciate that discussion though, Harry, because I think it's something not necessarily very often spoke about, at least on online coaching and coaching in general, is like people joke about it that you're like a psychiatrist or whatever, and we're not, and it's not our scope of practice. So if it's getting to that point where you feel uncomfortable about talking about these things, like you said there, try and divert it back to what's relevant to our scope. And if it's getting to the point where you're like, you need to see a professional or whatever, like you can refer out and you shouldn't feel bad or uncomfortable about that. It's actually worse for them and you if you try and like wear too many hats and you try and diagnose like various problems. And I think if they ask you like your opinion or advice, it's fine to give that, I think, but like don't go beyond and like, I don't know, you know what some people can get like, and they think they have to have the answer. I think it's like you said, you're probably very direct in this as well, Harry, where you're just like, I don't know this, or like, and I think we're all the same way. Like if we don't know the answer, it's like, this isn't for my scope. This isn't like, I can't answer this question for you.
If I'm ever in any doubt, I just say, that's not my scope of practice. But like, just to preface any statement you say with, this is outside my scope of practice. And I find myself saying that on an almost daily basis. Whereas when I was a new PT, I would almost never say it.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I'm much more confident in what my lane is now. And I think that comes with having people in the other lanes that I know I can refer to as well. Like I referred a client to Mike the other day, and I was so impressed with the way Mike handled the situation. It's physio Mike, if anyone listening. Like I've worked with physios before, and his follow-up was it was like, he just knew exactly how to handle the situation in a way that alleviated everyone's concerns. Like that was it. You could tell that was his primary goal, was to make sure that the client felt understood first and foremost, and felt like Mike had their best interest at heart. And yeah, just, I was so impressed. I wanted to forward the email to other people to say like, look how good this physio is, but obviously I can't do that because it's like personal information for that client. But yeah. Like,
I have, funny that you're bringing it up, because right now I have an email here from Mike, who's working and treating one of my athletes. And the amount of work and effort that he has put into the last 24 to 48 hours has been nothing but impressive, I have to say. So honestly, and that is independent of him being part of Team Revive Stronger, but I can just vouch for him and his abilities, just like as a physio, but also as a caring person who wants to do good and well for people.
That selflessness and caring nature just shines through so hard, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You just want to give him a hug. And I felt like he was almost giving my client like a appropriate kind of arm around the shoulder, like, it's going to be fine. This is what we're going to do. And most physios I've worked with have just been like, do these exercises, come back in a month, see ya. And then no management of emotions or expectations or anything like that.
Yeah, and saying that your glutes are tight and your core is weak.
Things. Just screw tight. That's always one, like clients who come back from physios and they're all like masseuse or whatever. And it's like, I was told I was so tight. And it's just,
they always use the specific name of the muscle, don't they? They'll be like, I saw the physio and he said my transverse abdominis was out of sequence and that my piriformis was exponentially twisted. You know what I mean? They just come up with all these big words.
Probably physios can speak well more to it. So probably someone like Mike can actually then talk way more about this. But I at least already find it funny, because the typical thing that I've heard is your glutes aren't firing or are tight, or the core is weak and has to actually be improved. Like those two things. It's like, it's always that. And I'm just like, man, you have something on your neck. The glutes don't really matter right now. Something like this, you know? Just
one thing that gets me is when a physio, again, I'm talking well outside my scope of practice here, but when a client has said, oh, the physio told me that I'm sleeping funny on my shoulder, that's why it's like this. I'm like, really? You slept funny on it? It's nothing to do with any of the typical causes of injury.
The physio's watching him sleep.
I said, how did your physio know that? And then I said, first and foremost, what makes you think that? And then I said, these are the typical things that cause injury. It's usually like, not like doing one thing wrong one time. It's like consistently doing something in an inefficient way that could lead to overuse injuries. And then you apply volume and intensity to those situations over a long period of time and you don't recover. And I'm like, but your physio thinks that you slept funny. Okay.
Yeah. Too much.
I'm not judging. I'm just I'm making an implication that perhaps they are wrong. Yeah.
But I mean, this is kind of in every kind of field like this. There are always people who learn something, maybe through their education in university, or maybe they've been an apprentice somewhere or so, right? And they never really go beyond of questioning things and maybe going out there and learning things on them on their own, and then by doing so, once again, questioning the things that they've learned. They always just take it for granted and never really go beyond that. And this is also something that you commonly see amongst personal trainers. That's why you see so many personal trainers who have gone through educational route who are just like, sorry, maybe they are good personal trainers when it comes to the personal interaction. But when it comes to the knowledge around like training methodologies and nutritional advice, it lacks quite severely.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service that will take your physique and knowledge to the next level. If you're interested, check the description and sign up.
We're looking for a trainer at my gym that I work in now because there's just scope for another trainer. And I'm in a role in that gym where I am the one who has like the final decision over if we're going to bring someone on or not in the personal training team. And it's exactly that situation. Like I must have met over 100 trainers in like the last 3 or 4 years that were interested in a role or just in general. And I'm like, I have like a checklist that they need to kind of hit. And I don't think my expectations are too high. They are high expectations, but yeah, only in that 4-year period, there's only like 3 people that have kind of checked enough boxes for me to actually bring them on board. And that's with me actively looking for people. Like anytime we go to events and seminars and stuff, like the thing with like one of the, like the seminar the other day, almost anyone in that room would have been a really good choice. But the thing is, most of them are probably online coaches or they don't live geographically close or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's the problem where I'm like the owner of the gym, do you know someone? I'm like, yeah, I know loads of people. They're just not within a 100-mile radius of here.
But that's why someone was asking in the crowd at the London seminar whether the online coaching field is right now oversaturated or how this situation is right now. And I think it is. And I think I even brought it up there at the seminar that I think it may be even a better idea to actually now start being an offline PT again. Because there was that time where all of the people were working offline and then wanted to transition into online coaching. It's the same with kind of supply and demand in every kind of field as well. And there was as well. It was very attractive for the vast majority of people to actually become an online coach. And then because of that, there's less and less quality offline PTs available. And right now, I think it may be even a good idea to become now an offline PT because the demand is there for very, very good and knowledgeable PTs. But the supply is kind of lacking, right? So you could also there actually probably get quite easily a job in your local area without a lot of competition. And that's a great thing, isn't it?
Yeah, there's lots of legislative reasons for why the trainers are hard to find at the moment as well, because the government has made the way gyms used to run things, the process they'd have PTs basically bend over backwards and pull their pants down for them to be able to work in a gym. Like they charge you rent and make you work hours and all that kind of stuff. Basically, recent government laws have changed, which don't allow that to happen anymore. So most gyms are technically operating illegally in the way in which they have people who are working in their club, doing employed things, but not being employed. And that creates a problem where, basically lots of PTs are kind of in flux, floating between places, lots of clubs. It's a bit of a weird situation. I think it needs another 3 or 4 years to iron out to figure out how to actually be a trainer, because that's part of the problem. That's part of the reason why things have changed. Like the type of situation where you could be a contractor and basically be treated like an employee by a business, but then get none of the benefits that employees get. Yeah. So that's part of the problem with the industry at the moment. And that's led to lots of people choosing to go online, because you think, why would I put myself in a situation where I'm going to have to give up 20 hours of my time a week and pay a few £100s a month to be able to do something that's only earning me a few £100s a month?
But don't you think that then after a while, once again, supply and demand kicks in, and then they have to actually increase the incentives again, either in the form of monetary incentives or other kind of changes in their work environment, contract-wise, because they always need personal trainers. And it's kind of the same when it comes to, construction workers and mechanics right now. There's a massive lack of them, at least here in Germany and especially around Berlin. And they can charge tons of money at the moment because there's just such a lack of supply at the moment of professionals in that field. And that, of course, on the other hand, will attract a lot of people, because those mechanics and also construction work, just like those people working in those fields, earn a shit ton of money right now. And it would then be attractive for the up and coming generation to actually go down in that field, because you can make a shit ton of money right now. Right. And there's a constant kind of fluctuation of because the incentives may be so attractive, people will come. At some point, there's an oversupply, and then the incentives will dampen down again, and it will come and go in waves. And I would assume that it's the same when it comes to personal trainers and offline PTs as well.
Similar, but because there's a lower barrier for entry into the industry, you generally get there's a much greater number of them than there would be compared to say potentially, I don't know, mechanics, but they generally don't stick around. Like COVID was great from the perspective of people who it did wipe out a lot of the industry. And I say great because it changed the dynamic slightly to make, because most gyms probably lost at least one trainer, I think, over the course of the lockdowns and stuff, which would by default improve the businesses of the remaining trainers. My club didn't, because we like I've got kind of quality control is really good. So all the trainers kept earning decent income throughout lockdown and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely I've seen there's a few gyms in the area. I've seen it with barbers as well, interestingly. I've got a mate who owns a barber shop, and they just can't hang on to barbers. And I've seen that consistently in loads of different places, because it's one of those jobs where, especially with the cost of living increase, unless you're really good and established, you don't earn enough money to make a decent living. And personal training is the same. So I think that because of the cost of living and post lockdowns and all that kind of stuff, like a lot of people have just moved into different areas, like minimum wage jobs and that kind of stuff.
I also wonder in terms of like demand, just because we're kind of speculating, because there's been an influx of like apps and online PTs. So people who used to maybe get a one-on-one PT, maybe they're moving online. So is that demand shifting? I think there's always going to be demand, you'd hope, from the people that online and apps just aren't applicable for. I don't know, like the guy who is like very wealthy and just wants someone else to tell him what to do in a gym and needs that person there. And then you have the newbies who just, they can't get on because they don't know how to do the technique. But there's a huge swath in between where they've got basic technique down. They don't need someone there like to take them through sessions. And then there's all this online coaching available in apps. It's like, it's even to the point of which I don't think we've seen, it's hard to know, but I haven't seen a drop in demand since the growth of apps. Like I haven't seen that happen. So I think there is almost always some people who want that personal touch.
I think the people going on apps are the people that would have gone for the quick fix stuff.
Yeah.
In my experience.
Yeah.
I've seen an interesting trend though. Generally, like a kind of gym member's journey is they are unhappy with something about their physique or their appearance or their fitness. They tend to go for a low cost service like an app or something like that, or Weight Watchers. They are motivated at the start, then they don't make the progress they thought they would, and then they get frustrated, and then they try something else, and then they end up investing in personal training. And depending on whether they invest in a good trainer or a shit trainer, they tend to either fitness will become part of their life forever and they'll start to understand the variables and reach a point where they don't need a trainer anymore, or they just then feel like there's no hope for them, nothing can help them because they tried a trainer and the trainer was crap and didn't help either. And then they're the kind of people that you tend to see come to the gym like seasonally as opposed to consistently.
Probably also it's that type of, and this is just me making assumptions, but when that individual is looking for the more cheaper option of then going for an app instead of a coach in the first place, they are, I would assume, more likely to then also pick a shitty coach because they are the ones charging probably less money per client, and then have like a lot of clients maybe. And then they have a bad experience and never really come back.
Mm-hmm. I've experienced that. I got a new client I signed up in this week in that exact situation. He was a friend and colleague of mine, and he basically has worked with a couple of online coaches and has mentioned, like, he's basically been showing me the kind of content and stuff they've been giving him. And I'm not going to shit on someone else. I've just made it, if I have seen a red flag, I have just indicated to him, I think this is a red flag because of XYZ reason. And then he's been through 2 coaches now before he was like, Harry, do you want to coach me? And I was like, yes, I will. And it was really funny how but like you said, but had I not been geographically close to him, he may have just thought, oh, online trainers are shit. I'm never going to get the results I want to get.
So unfortunately, right?
He was going for, people, loads of followers with a low cost service, like that kind of thing.
I think though, also there, it's very similar to other fields in life, right? If you are, I don't know, getting to the wrong people in the first place, it leaves a bitter taste in your mouth, and you have to really then get a very, very good experience afterwards to make up for it.
Mm-hmm. You see it with trainers that try to make money by undercutting other people. I've been in gyms where that's been the case, where like there's been a trainer, where like the average, I would charge between sort of £15-60 a session. So that's like a reasonable amount. It's quite a lot for a lot of people. It's not a lot for some people. But then there'll be someone coming to the gym every now and then who charges like 20, and then they'll leave inevitably because they can't sustain themselves. And then their clients then inquire, and then they'll be like, my last guy charged this much. Why are you so much? And I just don't really bother entertaining them anymore, because I'm never going to be able to overwhelm them with value. What am I trying to say? Without them paying, if that makes sense. Like, if they paid for the service, they would understand the value. But because they had the service so cheap before, because they had a crappy, cheap service, they presume that I'm offering the same, but just charging more money for it. So generally now, I don't really entertain them that much. When I've had incidents like that where they reach out and inquire, I basically just straight up say, this is how much it's going to cost. No, I won't flex on price. If you're still interested, we can have a consultation.
I could also imagine that you would need to offer exponentially more in terms of the quality than the other person, even though that the price difference may just be double the amount. It's not that they are expecting then double the amount of quality, probably exponentially more, like, I don't know, 10 times more of a quality service or so. So you can't ever, or the possibility of you pleasing them is so low that often it's just a pain then afterwards.
So what I do typically now is I just say, like, I'm honest with people. I say the going rate is in this area is this much. If you want to push for a very experienced, very good, knowledgeable trainer, it's going to cost you this much. And what you were charging what you were paying was an outlier. And you're not going to find that unless you keep chasing low quality. So when you're interested in higher quality, knock on my door again. And generally they don't come back. But I think the type of people that are looking for a deal anyway are usually not the best quality clients. When we refer to quality as in the ones that trust you and adhere, that's how I would gauge quality. Because I generally find the lower you charge,
work together with you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that implies everything of like trust, communication, doing the things that they are supposed to be doing, even though that you don't really force them to. You say like, okay, if you want to see results, this is kind of the recipe, follow it, right? And then they do it. But at the same time, they are very good at reporting back to you of how they feel, how they experience things, etc., etc.
How bad everything is. Yeah. You get that a lot. Yeah. It's interesting. You just made me think I'm a lot more direct and assertive with clients now in that sense, where I'll say like, essentially these things need to happen for you to get where you want to get based on like the goals that you said you want. And then sometimes people will be like, but this. I'm like, but you need to do these things or you're not going to get where you want to get. And then they'll be like, but you need to do these things or you're not going to get where you want to get. And then you kind of get to the point where like, I guess I'll try harder then. You're like, yes, you probably should.
Yeah. It's very interesting because that's basically also what Jared brought up in his presentation at the London seminar. Of like, if you want to have a result X, you need to do Y. Right? And there's no way around it. And sorry, Pascal. I think part of it comes from like, there's so many people producing like fitness content. So like, there's so many people who are trying to appease every audience. And I definitely feel like, yes, you can be flexible, but I do feel like the general kind of trend of most coaches is saying like, you can do whatever you like and still get results. Yeah.
And then when you try to, like, I myself have caught myself trying to pander to that attitude, but then you realize actually, no, that's misleading the potential clients.
No, absolutely.
And I feel like a lot of people come to me now, especially on the like a beginner intermediate end of the spectrum, where they have this expectation that like they can kind of do what they want, but you almost have some special way of doing it. And then you kind of like, you explain what needs to be done. And they're like, oh, okay, that's harder than I thought. And you're like,
it's kind of as, I always like to compare it to when you are at a child's tournament and everyone just receives a medal. That's not a good thing, right? And it's kind of the same. They are expecting to just like participate and receive a medal and be a winner amongst the other people who participated as well. But that's not how it works. Of course, you need to bring kind of the work, the effort, and do your very best in order to actually place first. And it's not just like everyone's the winner here today, you know? And I think that this is exactly like you said. Over on social media in particularly, because this is where then people are trying to get their attention of each and every one. They are trying to come up with false promises, false hopes, and people fall for it. We see it all the time. Right? And that's why I also brought it up in my presentation that I'm not a big fan of that term of balance. Because balance, of course, means always something different to the individual, right? And when someone is then, I don't know, it's kind of that lifestyle guru who's then preaching about balance. Yeah, no shit. Maybe he's then already a millionaire, can just relax the entire day. And then he creates like content for 1 hour and is just relaxing for the rest of the day. Whereas someone, I don't know, we always bring up then the example of like Tracy, 3 kids at home, right? Full-time work as well. Talk about balance for her, right? It's much, much harder as well.
I like to look at things with numerical metrics. Like most people end up eating about 4 times a day. So you've got 28 meals a week. Balance would imply that 14 of those meals could be wherever you want and 14 of them could be on target. I'm like, if we were to do that, you'd get nowhere with your results. I'm like, what we really want is sort of 25 out of 28 to be awesome meals, like perfect meals, and maybe 3, not even off plan, but just not quite hitting macros perfectly. That's what balance really looks like when you have like lofty physique goals.
I said that right in the presentation. Yeah. Just wanted to make sure. It could have been that you actually had the same kind of example coming up for you at some point, but it's exactly that. I mean, theoretically speaking, it's the same also when it comes to reps. For example, how many reps will you do over the entirety of your lifting career? If you then break it down, right? If you then kind of misgroove 1 or 2 reps out of those tens of thousands of reps that you're then doing, is it really going to make that much of a difference? No. However, each and every single rep can leave kind of some clues on what it is that you can do better, right? And that's what you're trying to accomplish, right? Try to make each of those reps as much count as possible, but every now and then it's all right then to also deviate slightly, and still there are some takeaways from it. And you still did the rep. It's not that you didn't do the rep at all. And it's the same when it comes to those meals. I always say like, okay, you're still eating, right? So if then you're in an environment that is less in your control, you still can try to make it as much or as close to the calories that you're normally consuming during that meal as possible. And if you're then deviating by like 100 or 200 calories, so be it. It's not a big deal, right? But if you're just like letting loose and think that you can't really control anything at all, then it creates issues, especially when it then happens like 1/3 out of the entire week or so.
I like to think of meals as reps as well. Like that helps me with my personal mindset. Sorry, Steve. Where like I will always nail my reps in my training to the best of my ability because I really enjoy that. But then I had a mindset shift. I was like, meals are kind of like reps in the program as well. And then since kind of adopting that attitude, I found that I'm been way more consistent and adherent because I've managed to find a way to get the same value out of completing a meal rep perfectly as I do as completing like a training rep perfectly.
I was just going to say, with balance, I think I find it, the way I kind of think about it a little bit is like sustainability almost. And at least short-term sustainability for that goal in hand, maybe, where I'm thinking balance is you're not falling off. So that might look different depending on what your goals are at that particular time. So someone's balance for like contest prep might be like very extreme, like short-term. If you kind of deviate even a small amount, you're going to fall off. Whereas for like a lifestyle general fat loss client, they have like a really big, easy like route of, okay, if you have an extra 500 calories because you went out for a meal for the week, you're in a deficit and you're in a large deficit anyway. So it's not a big deal. You have no short term, like you need to be a certain weight by a certain time or a certain level of shredded for a photo shoot. So I think that's balance. Like people have that, they say that word and then it's like, but it has to be individualized to the person at the time for their goal. So it does become, it is thrown out there as if everyone knows what it means, like on like you say, Pascal, on social media. And then it's like people get a really misconstrued idea of what that is. They think, oh, contest prep, balance, I should be able to go and eat out now. It's like, no, that doesn't fit within the context of your goal. You're going to fall off.
The term moderation, that triggers me.
Yeah.
You can have whatever you want in moderation. The fuck does moderation mean?
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's such a loose term, and that's one of the, just to go back to balance one more time, I just have such a big problem with that because what is it that you want to accomplish? Is it kind of happiness out of that? We even brought it up in the last improvement season podcast, Steve, like don't seek happiness in a thing that you're doing, seek satisfaction, right? And it's kind of the same thing here as well. Why are you trying to actually seek balance? What are you hoping to get out of it? And are you doing it for yourself? Because that would also imply that what it is that you're doing right now is something that doesn't really fulfill you. Right? And if you're then training like 5 or 6 times per week, maybe it's just too much for you and the things that you want outside of the training session. That has nothing to do with balance, in my opinion. That has something to do with changing your priorities and making kind of your lifestyle fit what it is that you want to do. It has nothing to do with balance, in my opinion. Right? Balancing is kind of giving equal amounts of your time and effort and maybe focus and concentration to certain other things in life, right? And that doesn't always have to be the case. And I think that, especially when it comes to obsession and so, it has such a bad reputation, and on the contrary, it's kind of balanced as if it's only a positive thing. And I don't even know what people are striving for when they're talking about balance. And I need to actually live a more balanced lifestyle. What does that even mean?
I guess when I'm thinking about it in like, how could we flip it to make it like a little bit of a positive? I think for your like very Gen Pop person who goes out drinking on the weekends, doesn't do any like weight training at all, doesn't pay attention to any of their food, maybe balance is drawing them away from like that extreme, because that's so extremely far away from what might otherwise be healthy. And maybe that's where balance could be helpful. But for the person who has like hard physique goals, to draw them away from the things that are making them like imbalanced is drawing them away from their goal. So yeah.
But isn't that more like a goal-driven thing, right? Of like each and every single day goes by, and you set probably some goals for yourself in life or things that you want to do. And based off of that, you're making decisions then in life. So also there, if you want to, for example, let's say be the best bodybuilder there is, balance would mean that you are balancing basically more so like recovery, sleep management, training and nutrition, and all of the other things. They need to be put on a back burner. And that is you making or setting some priorities, in my opinion. It has nothing to do really with balance, because balance would be like, okay, I actually need to decide to not become the best bodybuilder, but then once again, it turns back to being a decision and not a balanced viewpoint, you know?
Yeah, I think I don't know if you guys get this with clients where, I've certainly had it. I know you have, Pascal, and I wonder if Harry has as well, where they feel they have to be so extreme into this. If they're not 100%, they're completely out. And it's like, you can't get them 80% of the way there, or like, we're like, you don't have to train 6 days a week, like tracking macros every single day, every single macro, and like avoid alcohol every weekend, whatever. We can kind of draw it back. You just have to realize, like with every gimme of whatever, there's a gotcha. So you might get slightly less results, which comes back to your actually invest spend spectrum, Pascal, which I think is fantastic. And more I'm getting clients where I'm like own your actions. And they come back to me sometimes and they're like, so I decided, like, I know I'm in a calorie deficit. I decided though it was worth it to have this cupcake with my daughter or whatever, because she like gave it to me and I was just in the moment and I had it. I'm okay knowing that meant maybe I'm not going to lose as much weight this week. And I'm like, that's where I want to get to with you. Whereas a lot of people, they don't understand that there's these decisions and they're like, my daughter gave me this cupcake and I had to eat it. And man, I don't think I can do this. It's like, no, that's not this. We're trying to get a better understanding of this.
Very, very good example. And I think that I've used the term balance as well, and just throwing it around in the past without really thinking about it, of what the other individuals or how the other individuals could pick that up, because it's kind of such a loose term that if I throw it at you, Steve, you will perceive and think about it quite differently to how I possibly try to actually communicate to you, right? It's kind of the typical thing about communication of both parties, right? I'm the speaker and you're the listener, and you pick things up based on the words that I'm choosing, and some words can be actually perceived quite differently on your end than the way that I intend to actually bring them over in the message I'm sending to you. And that's why I think as long as we are then using such loose terms, we should actually then choose our words more wisely, and perhaps even with some examples of what it is that we are meaning, and also then some kind of real life experiences, for example.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
I don't think balance is a loose term. I think it's actually a very specific term. I think it's just used wrong. I think balance to me means like I just think of Thanos, when he balances the thing, like perfectly balanced, as all things should be. And I feel like there may be a better word for the thing that people are trying to describe. And I think of it more as calibration. It's like sometimes people are like, not like, if a goal's a destination, then they're really poorly calibrated to get to that destination. And then you kind of, we provide the framework that recalibrates them. And then sometimes they struggle with that. And it's our job to try and identify what the root of the struggle is, and then try and kind of not give them solutions, like help them to create solutions for themselves. And that's the biggest thing. Like, like you said, Steve, that attitude change where someone's like, I had to do it, versus I weighed it up and decided that it was worth the cost. And that's the kind of the attitude I always get to clients. Like sometimes when people are taking things a bit too seriously as well, like I've had a couple of clients where they're going on like a weekend break with their partner or something like that. And they've said something like, don't worry, I'm still tracking. And then I reply saying, why? Like, And then they'll be like, oh, like, I think I can manage it. And then I might respond something like, have you asked your partner if they're okay with that? And then they're like, what do you mean? And I'll be like, well, when we're in a deficit for a long time, we sometimes think that our actions aren't having an impact on the people around us and stuff that we care about. But then when you actually ask them straight up, like, if I was to say track on this holiday, would it piss you off? The partner would be like, yeah, it would. So then, and then you're like, well, and do you ever set clients' homework of like periods of time sometimes where you're specifically telling them like almost like banning them from using MyFitnessPal? I've done that a few times before where I'm like, your brain's a database already. You don't need the app. Leave it alone for a bit. And then they come back and they're like, everything's fine. I'm like, yeah, I told you it would.
No, absolutely.
Great point. I haven't kind of banned people from MyFitnessPal, but I've definitely had those discussions of like, why do you need to track? I don't know. It might be fat. Like we just remove tracking fat for a period of time. So why do you need that at this moment? Like you don't need that. Or encouraging them if they don't eat out very regularly. I'm like, so I have a chat with like most of your clients probably eat out now and then, at least if they're in like an off season. And if someone hasn't eaten out at all, like I will just be like, is there any reason, I don't know, you haven't been, or like, how's your social life? How's things like this? And maybe they come back with me and they're like, eating out makes me a bit anxious. I'm like, okay, let's start working towards getting you a skill set that you can enjoy eating out. And it might be like, I don't know, go to Nando's that has trackable foods and just enjoy a meal like that. And then you get them more and more comfortable with guesstimating and then just going in and like having a calorie allotment or whatever it might be, a free meal at some point. So you can kind of have a graduated approach because yeah, it's like that. People think they have to be 100% all in or off. And it's like, you want to get your clients skilled at the end of the day. And I think that's what we do really well at Revive Strong is like educating our clients so they leave and they're like, I don't know if they're like, oh, I have to track, otherwise I don't stay on point. It's like, no, now you have habits in place. Like you said, you have protein feedings 4 times a day, what have you. Like they generally know what to do with their training now. And so they can see long-term results after Revive.
Yeah, I like to move people. Again, this is one of my biases. I like to move people to thinking about things in less in numbers and more in terms of more tangible things. So instead of thinking like I have 50 grams of protein, 65 grams of carbs and 20 fat for this meal, I want them thinking like I need to add a protein component of X size, a carbohydrate component of X size, and then like a fat component of X size. And then that immediately I find alleviates a lot of stress for some clients where like for eating out, for example, when like, especially when we're with a gem pop or in like an off season or something like that, where they're like, instead of stressing about trying to hit macros in a restaurant, I'm like, well, can you find something on the menu that has a relatively lean protein source? Are you able to add carbohydrates to that meal? And are you able to add vegetables to that meal? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, what's the problem then? Like, it's not like you're eating out all the time. And I've generally found that most people report back from that kind of way of thinking, saying that they feel quite liberated when they are going to restaurants and stuff like that. Like instead of looking at all the numbers and calories and things, they're looking more for like, what's the leanest protein thing on the menu? And then they kind of scan that. And then I've given people structure before on how to order off the menu in places that don't allow you to order off the menu, which is quite funny. Because, you know, sometimes if you say to someone, can I order off the menu? They say no. You have to have what's on the menu. If you say something like, do you guys do grilled chicken? Oh, yeah. They'll be like, yeah. Do you guys do like boiled potatoes? They're like, yeah. Can I have that? And then they can't deny it to you because they've already specified that they do make those individual ingredients, as opposed to you just saying, can I have like just a grilled chicken, rest and potatoes? And they might go in the kitchen, doesn't like doing stuff off the menu. Yeah.
No, that's absolutely. A few times. I think that's the responsibility that we have as coaches, to educate then the people of being more autonomous and making the right decisions at the right time. That's also why I try to always educate my athletes on the priorities and what it is that matters in those moments. Because too many people are too fixated on the things that don't really matter a lot. When something that you brought up, even Harry, is that I have different strategies for then a day of eating out, for example, right? Of like, okay, if you're concerned about exceeding the calories for the day, then maybe save up some calories throughout the entire day. Maybe just 100 calories per meal. Maybe actually do something like intermittent fasting. Most of the people, they don't really, or they aren't really super hungry in the morning, right? So you're banking already a couple of calories there. And then once you approach then going into the evening dinner, you were supposed to eat anyway, so don't really stress about exceeding the calories too much if you're making still some mindful choices. So you can go in there and then something like where I'm saying, like, depending on the situation of whether they are in a cutting or gaining phase, I always then go by kind of palm size or plate size. Out of like in a gaining phase, I'd like to go with 1/3 of the plate size coming from protein, 1/3 of the plate size coming from a starch carbohydrate source, and then 1/3 of the plate size coming from vegetables. And then it changes in a cutting phase to half of the plate size coming from vegetables, etc., etc. So kind of making mindful decisions around that, and then also going by the one rule to rule them all, I like to say, of like having one normally sized plate with maybe one drink and also one dessert. And most of the time people are just absolutely fine with that, and that builds some awareness because they are thinking more so about the food that is in front of them and making the right choices, instead of just like, as you said, just at seeing the food and the drinks even as just numbers, because that is then running into issues.
It's like when you have the massive salad, like it's a good tool, but more appropriate for people at the end of prep than it is for people at the beginning of a cut. Like I've had people every now and then where they're like, more of my Gen Pop clients where I say I give them a calorie target of like 2,400, and they're like, good news, I've stuck to 1,800 all week this week. I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, I wasn't hungry. I'm like, you will be soon. So let's not do that. And then, or I get them to send me a picture of a meal and it's like a salad bowl the size of my head. And I'm like, thinking in my head, you're like 30% body fat. You don't need to be doing this yet. Like, and then generally we'll just educate a bit more, be like, instead of just eating like a kilogram of lettuce, why don't we actually add some more satiating food so you can have a little bit more of an enjoyable experience? Because then if they're reluctant to, I just kind of, well, you know, you press the pain points a little bit, just remind them about how what they've consistently done wrong in the past, which is usually go too hard, too fast and all that kind of stuff. And then you get a little bit more buy-in, especially when you're more like understanding, like instead of just being directive. I mean, I said I was assertive earlier, but I'm also like, I'm always what I visualize. I'm always just prodding people to get them to think about what I'm trying to get them to think about. And if I'm not quite there, I'll be like, you know, do you know what I mean? Like you're kind of you're trying to get them to come to the conclusion that you already have in your head, but you don't want to say the conclusion you have in your head. I find that really enjoyable, a part of coaching, where and sometimes they might come out with something and you're like, almost there, try again. Like, yeah.
And when they do come out with it themselves, when you're like, what do you think you should do? And then when they get the right answer, then they feel so empowered from that. And it's such a good learning for them. But I think this is why it's so valuable having a coach on your side through these general like phases, because they're things you learn that you can't read in a textbook, you can't understand, and there are skills that you pick up that you might not otherwise pick up because you just like, I don't know, I'm dieting, so now everything's Walden Farms and diet foods and all the vegetables, eat them all raw, and then you just feel like a complete mess. It's unsustainable for you. It's like, okay, we can graduate to this.
Quadruple overnight.
That's no good.
You have that before, and then you get a big stress response, and then the person's feeling shit, and you're like
bloated.
The fiber's gone from 20 to 50, like from one day to the next. Yeah.
Protein fluff. It's not a good one.
I'll never go near
Did you? Oh no, yeah, Pascal, we had your protein fluff story, didn't we?
Yeah.
Have you heard this, Harry?
Yeah, I think so.
Ambulance arrived
I still can't
home.
Oh wait, no, ambulance.
Yeah. I called the ambulance because I was feeling so bad. I had such stomach pain that I thought that something was kind of, I don't know, kind of ripped apart or kind of damaged in my organs.
We do some crazy stuff.
And so called the ambulance. They arrived at my place and they just like kind of touched my belly just a couple of times and said like, you're just full of gas and air.
I've had something similar when
just imagine that.
Yeah, a proper quad cramp for the first time in my life. I was at my parents' house about 5 or 6 years ago, and I tried to get off the sofa, and I just fell to the ground instantly with like searing pain in my right leg. And my leg was completely locked straight and I couldn't unlock it. I just couldn't do it. And then Hannah, my girlfriend, was like, you all right? I was like, no, I don't know what's wrong. And then I had her literally physically trying to manually bend my knee and she couldn't do it. And I just didn't know what's going on. Her mum is a paramedic. So we're phoning her mum like, what's wrong with Harry's leg? Like FaceTiming her. And then she's like, describe it to me. And I described it. She's like, you're having a leg cramp. I was like, is this a leg cramp? Is it this bad? She was like, yes. You'll be fine in a while. I remember literally lying on the ground, like drinking loads of water, eating a banana, like just waiting. It was about 20 minutes just waiting for my leg to unlock.
Amazing.
And then,
I've never had that.
I've had it twice, and it's always been weirdly. It's always been when I've had front squats in my program, which aren't even that. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because they're crushing my spine or something, and it was a neurological thing. But or I was probably dehydrated.
Don't do these.
Yeah, I haven't done them since really. But another time it happened, and I was walking into a supermarket, and I was like, like the automatic doors. I was literally just about to pass through, and I just fell over, and I was like, I had to like scoot myself out the way, and my leg was just completely straight again. And then Hannah was like, "Really, right now?" And I'm like, I can't stop it. But that was like, for like the duration of a cramp, it always feels like the worst pain you've ever experienced, doesn't it? Especially a cramp that feels like the entire muscle is contracting, not just like part of it.
I just had it a couple of times.
My quads were like rippling the whole time as well.
I just had it a couple of times while I was in bed. I don't know. There's a specific movement that I need to do with my foot so that I can actually cause then a cramp, and I can cause it just for a slight second, and then you just release the foot again, and it's all right. You don't really want to put it actually into that very, very near cramp position because it's just already there. Very, very painful.
Yeah, I can manually get my quad to lock up if I want to.
Oh,
so I have to just not, if that makes sense. Only when it's like a few hours post quad workout. I can't do it like any time. It's like me knowing that if I'm like, have I disrupted my quads? I'll flex them both, and then I almost feel the cramp just go like really quick. I'm like, no, and I'll just bend them again really quick. Like, no, not today. Like,
I've seen people get ab cramps, and I'm just
I've had that a couple of times.
Have you? I've never had that. They look crazy. Like it's just like
skin's, the muscles are rippling. Yeah,
it looks terrible. I can't even imagine abs cramping that much. Just like leg training is just completely out the window. Like I don't even know what you do at that point.
I've only had it from actual ab stuff. Like if I've done,
never been close.
Exceeded. I'm trying to think what movement caused it. I can't remember. Like there's only like one or two movements that ever really feel like they're hitting my abs in isolation. Most of the time, they feel like they're hitting abs and lots of other things as well.
Have you guys either experienced exertion headaches? Like a proper exertion headache?
I've felt the symptoms and then managed to stop what I was doing quick enough that it went away. But I've had a couple of clients in this to check in today actually reported an exertion headache.
Yeah. When I had that for the first time, I was like, I've never had that before. That's like I've done something severely wrong. I feel like I just came, and that was Bulgarian split squats and doing like metabolite techniques in like week 1, and I just went too hard. And
two clients in lockdown get exertion headaches from metabolite technique Bulgarian split squats for body weight.
Really?
And I think the exertion headaches are related to the duration that your blood pressure is elevated for.
Yeah, that could be.
Because like when you're producing force, your blood pressure elevates during a set. Then when I just asked them to describe their symptoms, they both said they could like feel their heartbeat in like the back of their neck for like a few seconds
like a
before.
Stabbing pain.
Yeah.
Like the skull.
Like douche, 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 and then it turned into the pain. And I felt that before. I was doing Smith machine squats in an overreaching week, and no, it wasn't. Legs. It was safety bar squats in an overreaching week, and it was like 15th or 16th rep. And then I just felt like that exact thing, like right there. And I just racked it and sat down. And then after a few seconds, it kind of went away. And I was like, we're leaving it at that today.
Yeah, smart to leave it, because if you start training again and it comes back, you set yourself back again. It's like any injury, actually. But that was, it's not a fun one. I know people get it on like leg press, but again, that's kind of...
I've come close to like, there was leg press in that workout too. I think I did leg press first and I felt a bit weird. And then the safety bar squats, I think I got through the first couple sets and it felt like something wasn't quite right. And then it was, I think, the 4th set or maybe even the 5th set where it was like, I started getting an actual symptom, not just like a weird feeling. And then, I was like, because I'd had clients already have it at that point. And I think it was after you'd already had it, Steve. I was like, it's like, I was pretty confident what it was when I was starting to feel the symptoms. So I just stopped. Yeah.
Cool.
So we pretty much covered the time now.
Absolutely.
I knew we'd end up talking about, we somehow find a topic to talk about without even trying.
Talking about my own training. Yes.
Next time, Harry, next time.
Yeah.
Are you dieting still? Just for
I actually took a 2-week diet break because I just had things kept coming up where I was like, I don't want to. It sounds silly because I never tell this to clients, but I wanted to start it on a clear week because I did like a cutting meso,
like Monday,
and then but I wanted to do it on a clear week where I wasn't going to have to make any compromises of any of the meals. I just wanted to give myself like one solid week of 100% adherence because I know that then motivates you to continue. So I just delayed it for a couple of weeks. Yeah. So this week, and I've nailed every meal so far this week. So, and I feel really motivated by that fact as well.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. Good to know. And
dropped 2 kilos in 2 days.
There you go.
I always
Man,
find,
you're making me...
I always find when you're 100% adherent, the first week you drop a shit ton. Like if you have 100% adherence, and I see that with clients as well. Like sometimes the clients don't lose weight, but before thinking maybe we need to reduce calories, I'm like, did you really adhere 100%? Like,
always good to check.
Yeah,
you're making me not tempted. You're making me just want to diet. I'm just like, I could really.
And that was it as well.
Like
I wanted to want to diet, so I took that extra week. So I was getting, when you start getting annoyed that your meals are too many calories, you're like, I don't want to eat this many calories. I wanted to feel like that before I drop back into the diet as well. But
that's always a nice starting point to go from. It's not nice. Last off season, I did mini cuts where I was like, I didn't really want to do it at all. Like I was still enjoying food. It's never a nice position to start doing a diet from. You want to kind of not be, I don't know, at least be satisfied with what you're eating, not like, oh, I could always eat a bit more.
What I find is, I say to clients sometimes, I know we're going to end quickly, when you're walking through a supermarket, I say your eyes scanning for like crap food or not. And then, because I find that in myself, like when I'm not really ready to diet, I might be walking around and I might notice things. Like I might notice that Pringles are on offer, or I might notice that, Whereas when I'm not, I just go in, grab the shit I want and leave.
So maybe go to a food festival if you're not like into shitty food. Like if you're walking around and you're just like, oh, that stand looks good. Let's go over there and get some food there. Oh no, this one also looks good. And if you're at Steve's position right now, it's just like, oh no, can't we just leave, go back home again?
Literally.
I'm probably the same.
I'm close to that.
I feel like considering I've been dieting for 2 days, I'm probably at that point now where like, if Hannah was like, let's go out to eat, I'd be like, no, not this week. Like, God, Hannah. Yeah.
Don't blame her. It's your choice, Harry.
I know. I always do that jokingly. But even to her, I'm like, it's your fault. She's like, why is it my fault? I'm like, well, it couldn't possibly be mine. So
you forced this pizza down my throat.
Exactly. She's such an enabler because she's, like when people refer to someone as
Harry, wait a second. Let's not go down that road. The listeners don't really need to listen to us chat about those kind of things. So guys, thank you very much for tuning in. I really do hope that you've enjoyed the Coaching Corner, that it's back. I hope that it doesn't last it takes us another year to make one of those episodes.
Has it been a year?
I don't know. I was just throwing it out there. It feels like it at least. So guys, if you enjoyed it, if you have any kind of questions for Harry, for example, because he is also answering some questions here over on YouTube, put it into the comment section below. If there's anything that we didn't really cover here today, also let us know in the comment section below. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. And then I guess I'll speak to you guys next week.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.